Hi folks, I'm Sean Shelf, sporting my new home haircut that my wife gave me, and I'm joined by the always lovely Laura Clark. We are the founding partners and wealth advisors here at Reliant Wealth Planning. We wanted to do another video for you. The first one got an incredible response. You all seem to really get a lot out of that, so we wanted to do another one. And one of our clients down in Texas had commented that they really appreciated when we showed them what we had been doing on the behalf of all the clients in the portfolios and with the planning. And then they made a recommendation. They said, it's great to see what you're doing. And they'd love to hear about some things that they could do, that you as clients can do to kind of improve the situation. So that's what we're going to go through today. Some of the steps that you can take in order to help us during this kind of trying situation in the market. So the very first action that we're going to recommend you take is going to be hard, and we know that. But you got to do your best to take a longer term perspective on this. And I know a lot of you are like, I do take a long term perspective. I wait till the end of the day to see how the market's going to close. And unfortunately, 8 hours is not a long-term perspective, although I know it can feel like it when the market's jumping around a lot. But we got to look longer than that. I mean, for instance, when Laura and I look at things, our perspective we take is your life expectancy. So we have to worry about what's going on now all the way through. That doesn't mean we just worry about the beginning and the end. We have to worry about and think about what's going to happen as we progress through that. Okay. Some of the more tactical things that we have been doing lately, though, are actually focused a little shorter term. But by us, short term means 1 or 2 years. We're trying to make sure the portfolios are positioned in a way that a year or two from now, we're going to get the best impact that we can, and that it's going to help you achieve your goals in that way. Now, to help you kind of understand this, I want you to look at something real quick. Now, what you have a chart in front of you now is what the end of 2008 and the beginning of 2009 looked like, the very tail end of the Great Recession, and to look at the bottoming of it so that you can kind of understand what it looks like when a market's kind of in its last gasps of a bear market and then recover. So on this screen right now, from October to November, I've highlighted a time frame here. The market during that time frame actually went up 18.5%. And at that time, that felt like a big relief. And people were like, well, I wonder if it's over. Well, you can see from the chart, no, it wasn't over. We more than gave that 18.5% back and went down some more. Then at about between the end of November on into the beginning of January of 2009, then the market went up 24%. That's a little more than we just went up last week from Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Of course, last week that all happened in 3 days, and this took the better part of a month and a half about. But there was this recovery of 24%, and again, that really helped people feel relieved. Then the market went down again. As you can see, it really didn't bottom out until March of 2009. Now, why are we telling you this? We are not telling you this in any way, shape, or form to scare you. It's actually quite the opposite. We want you to get 2 things out of this. One, we want to tell you what this looks like so you know what to expect. So that as this is happening, that you're not surprised by it, and you can know, yeah, this is what this looks like. This is a natural marketing bottoming process as the market goes up and it goes down. Like we told you in the last video, we didn't think we'd seen the end of the bottom of the market. We did that video on Monday. Then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday had these huge upsides. Well, now we're in the process of kind of giving some of that back, and we fully expect that. So that's perfectly natural. The second reason we wanted you to see this, honestly, is to give you some hope. So that you know, yes, this is what this looks like. This is not unusual. It's happening faster than normal, but the pattern's not unusual. And this is actually kind of necessary so that we can get on to the recovery phase. I want to show you this picture too to give you some kind of perspective. So what we have here is the market. And the part in the bracket, that little part in those gray brackets, that's what we just look like, what we just looked at. What we looked at before, I know, looked extreme, is going up, is going down. But when you pull back a little bit, you can see, yeah, you can tell some movement, but it doesn't look nearly as scary. And then as time goes on, you can see what the progression looks like. In 2010, and then by 2015, what was in the gray bracket looks just like noise, actually. And then all the way now to 2020, with the dip that we've seen already, but you can see When the bigger the perspective you have, the longer the perspective you have, the more things start to make sense.
Having seen the slides that Sean just showed, it is not going to come as a surprise that our next recommendation is to stop checking your accounts constantly. Not good for your mental health, and definitely goes against our number one recommendation, which is to take a longer term perspective. Our next recommendation is to hold off on discretionary spending. We're still well within the parameters of cash flow for the clients that we have done full financial planning for. However, this is not the time to remodel a second bathroom, to do a new car purchase, if it's going to cause us to sell assets as they are down. Give them some time to recover. A recommendation to help improve your situation during this time is to consider refinancing debt. If you are carrying a home mortgage, it really could be a good opportunity for you. We had thought the opportunities to do a refinance were long gone, and we were wrong. Right now, we have seen financial institutions offering 2.875 on a 30-year mortgage, which is unbelievable and certainly should be taken advantage of. Commercial lending, we've seen really great rates in that area as well. We have a client who's doing a purchase and has been offered between 3.5 and 3.99. Again, a really good opportunity to look at debt that you're carrying and get a better interest rate.
The fifth thing is to make sure you take advantage of everything that you can that's coming from the CARES Act stimulus package that was just passed just last week. Now, there's a lot of things in here, so we're not going to be able to go into a lot of detail on exactly what they are. I'm just going to show you the list of kind of what's available, and then if you think something applies to you, you can contact us and we can get you some more information. Now, number 0 up here really wasn't in the CARES Act. This happened a little before, but I want to remind you of it. They have delayed when we have to file taxes and when you have to pay your taxes until July 15th of this year for 2019. So, especially if you owe money on your taxes, this might make sense. If you're going to get a refund, delaying might be questionable. You might want to go ahead and file your taxes so you can get that refund. So, one of the very first things, and the thing a lot of people have heard of in the CARES Act, is the recovery rebate. That's the checks they're going to automatically send out. They're saying they think they can get that done in a few weeks. We'll see how fast that takes. But if you're on Social Security, it's going to the account your Social Security is deposited in. If you filed taxes last year and had it auto contributed into an account somewhere else, it'll go to that account. And if you haven't done either of those two, they're going to mail out paper checks for that. They've expanded unemployment. You can be on it longer and you get more money out of it, and that's a state-by-state thing. Penalty-free retirement account withdrawals. If necessary, you're allowed to now to take out up to $100,000 out of either an employer account or an individual retirement account. If you're under 59 and a half, they'll waive the penalty, and you actually have 3 years either to get the money back into a retirement account or 3 years to pay those taxes on that money. So if you're really hurting for a source of funds, this could be something you could take advantage of. Fifth is something called a qualified charitable contribution. Now, don't confuse this with a QCD, a qualified charitable distribution. This is a new thing. What this allows people to do is be able to deduct at least $300 off your taxes for a charitable contribution, even if you don't normally itemize your deductions. This is what's called an above-the-line deduction. So even if you're not doing anything else, they'll let you write off at least $300 off your taxes. There's whole programs for student loan payment holidays. So if you have some type of student loan or kids or grandkids do, this is definitely something to look into. It delays where you don't have to make any payments at all for a while. Now, if you're a small business owner involved in small business, there's several programs on that. Some of the biggest ones is called the Paycheck Protection Loan. This is a loan you get if you qualify, and if you continue to qualify for it throughout the term, it can actually be forgiven, so it becomes more of a grant than a loan. And also an employee retention credit. This is a credit to offset against payroll taxes. Again, there's qualifying things that you have to do to get this, but it's something worth looking into. Now, number 6, if possible, delay making charitable contributions with either appreciated assets or QCDs qualified charitable distributions. Now, I said if possible. I know some of you all are on programs where you have made pledges and that's on a schedule. And also right now, if charities ever needed help, now is one of the times they might need it. So if you feel like the charity needs the money immediately and that's what you need to do, fine. But what we're saying is if possible, if you're making your charitable contributions with assets, so either appreciated assets or QCDs, it would really benefit you to delay that until the assets have recovered a little bit of their value. Now, that same logic does not apply if you're going to donate in cash. If you already have the cash set aside, you can go ahead and make those charitable contributions with the cash because delaying isn't going to impact the cash one way or the other. Number 7, the required minimum distributions that normally you have to make, whether you're a retiree over a certain age or if you've inherited an account, have been totally suspended for 2020. So what that means is there are no RMDs, either from retirees or inherited accounts, for all the year 2020. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. There can still be some reasons it makes sense to take a distribution this year. You might want to take one so you can make a qualified charitable distribution. You might want to do it for a Roth conversion, which we're going to talk about in a minute. Or you might still do it because your taxes are going to be low this year and it'd be better to realize those taxes this year than in the future. So any of those reasons might be reasons you still want to do it. But if it works better in your situation not to take one at all, you don't have to. Now, unfortunately, this is not a grandfather provision. So if you've already taken a distribution in 2020, there's no takebacks. They're not going to let you put it back. That was specifically in the law. But if you haven't taken one yet, you don't have to. So let's talk about this Roth conversion thing. Now, we mentioned this in the last video, and we've had several clients doing this. But there's still some confusion about it. Even clients who are doing it will tell us, I think I understand why I'm doing this. So we want to go over this in a little more detail because we think this is actually one of the most powerful things, if it fits your situation, that you can do right now. So just as a reminder, a Roth IRA is funded with after-tax money. So you've already paid taxes on it. It goes into the Roth. But once it's in there, no taxes are paid on anything that happens inside of the Roth. And as long as you pull it out following the rules, no taxes will be due on the growth. So that's a Roth IRA. There's 2 advantages to doing this conversion, especially right now. 1, you get to pay today's tax rates instead of future tax rates. So, with the stimulus package that was just passed, it was $2 trillion. And they're talking about passing another one that's almost $2 trillion as well. That's a massive amount of government debt. Tax rates were already low even before that spending. And with now all the new spending, it's almost unfathomable to think taxes aren't going to go up in the future. So by doing a Roth conversion this year, you get to pay today's tax rates and avoid the future ones. Now, that's the big word for that is called tax rate arbitrage. So you can impress some people when you're allowed to be around people again, and they're asking, well, what were you able to do? And you can very intelligently say, well, I took advantage of tax rate arbitrage. The second reason it's a good idea to do that right now is assets have taken a market hit. So you can move assets that are down in value, move them over, pay the taxes on the current value, and as they regain value, you won't owe taxes. So let's take a look at that, because I think that's the part that's kind of confusing to folks. So imagine you have 100 shares of XYZ investment inside of a retirement account. And before the market dropped, that investment was worth $20,000. Then the market started dropping, and now it's lost $5,000 of its value and it's worth $15,000. So there's some loss in the investment itself. If we do a Roth conversion now at this point, what that means is we pick up that investment and we move it over to a Roth. It's worth $15,000. So like on the screen shows you, you will owe taxes in 2020 on 2020 taxes on $15,000 worth of ordinary income. It moves over, and now you have 100 shares of XYZ worth $15,000 in the Roth. Now, the market recovers, like we talked about. It's going to recover, and it grows back that $5,000 that it had lost. Now, what's interesting is that we get back up to that pre-market value of $20,000, but you only pay taxes on the $15,000. Then, as long as we follow the rules on pulling the money out, once the money comes out, you won't owe any taxes on that $15,000 of recovery money. And not just after the recovery, it'll keep growing from there, and you won't owe taxes on any additional money that occurred on that. Now, who might this be a good fit for? Because this doesn't work for everybody. So who is it a good fit for? One, you've got to be willing to pay the taxes now. We've talked to folks, and no matter how good the numbers look on paper, they just don't like the idea of paying the taxes now. And that's okay. You do have to realize it's going to look like ordinary income for every dollar you pull, so you got to be willing to pay those taxes. Second thing, you have to have non-retirement money to pay that taxes with. Now, when I say you have to have, that's not a law, but it really only makes sense to pay with non-retirement money. If you use retirement money to pay the taxes, the technique doesn't work nearly as well. And then lastly, either you or your heirs need to be able to have those assets in the Roth for some years. Now, this is something we've heard some people say that, well, I don't think I have the time to make this work because of their age. And it's really not necessarily about them because they're not using the money anyway. The money is going to be passed on to their heirs. So it's really about whether you or your heirs can let that money sit there for several years so that we can get this compounding out of it. It works either way. Now, one of the last things we can do, and this is kind of obvious, but you can add cash to investment portfolios. Everybody knows the old adage, you're supposed to buy low and sell high. Well, I got a news flash for you. Things are relatively low. Now, like Laura and I have shared with you in the past, actually, as of today, which is April 1st, we think things will be lower still going forward. So that gives us some time, if you want to take advantage of this, to get some money into the accounts and add to them. Where can you add money? Well, it doesn't necessarily even have to be at Reliant. If you're still working and you have employer plans, you can add money to those if you're not already maxed out. If you are maxed out, though, most people, when they add money in all through the year, each 12 months. Even if you can't add any more money to the accounts as far as because you are at the max, you can try to front load it. If your cash flow, month-to-month cash flow will allow you, you can go back to your employer and tell them you want to go ahead and put the whole year's worth of retirement plan contributions in right now so that you can take advantage of the lower asset values. You can add Roth or IRA accounts. Now, like we'd already said, the tax filing date has been extended to July 15th for 2019. So that means you still have until July 15th to get in both 2019 and 2020 contributions in there. And then you can always just add to your brokerage account, non-retirement accounts. Now, where are people finding this money to do this? We've had lots of clients do this already, and it's coming from all kinds of different sources, which is why you have to kind of look at your own situation. Some people are front-loading retirement accounts at work. Others just happen to sell a piece of property, and they're using that money. Some have had money piling up in their checking account for years and years, and they're not using that. They're using that. Now, there is some money that you really shouldn't use. So we want to talk about that. Anything you need for a short-term need, you know you're going to spend it. Next fall's college tuition, something you know you're going to need, this is not appropriate to do it with. Once we put money in, you need to be able to let it be there for several years. If you have an emergency fund, that's great. This is not money you should be putting into the market. The emergency fund there exists for exactly what it sounds like, for an emergency. So we shouldn't use all that money. And also the liquidity reserves that we have for your accounts here, or your cash buffers, we're not investing that either. That is serving a very important purpose right now from protecting us from sequence of return risk. So we're not going to invest that money either.
Thank you so much for taking the time today to watch this video that we prepared for you. Again, we appreciated the overwhelmingly positive response that we received from the first video and hope that you feel the same about this one. If you have any questions or anything that we can do for you, please do not hesitate to contact Sean or myself via email or call the office. Again, thank you.